All right, so yesterday we talked about the Trojan War, and we also read about Homer, and the fact that he wrote about ancient Greek mythology in his epic poems. Okay, so today we're going to actually read about one of the ancient Greek myths about Aphrodite. And so we're going to read some information about how these myths kind of played into Greek society and like the impact that they had on that society. So, paragraph 1 is our introduction. It says Greek mythology began thousands of years ago. There was a need to explain natural events, disasters, and events in history. Myths were created about gods and goddesses who had special powers and human feelings. These myths were passed down in beliefs and stories. Okay, so when I look at this, it's talking about these Greek myths, Greek mythology, okay? So what is the most important thing that's happening around it? Well, they were created about gods and goddesses who had special powers. So I'm going to put my exclamation point there. Why were they created? To explain natural events, disasters, and historical events. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a hashtag that reflects my symbols. So it's going to say Greek mythology created to explain natural. I'm going ahead and put an arrow down here. Disasters and historical events. So if you look here, this matches what I have my symbols on in the paragraph. So we need to make sure as we're going through and annotating, all of our symbols and hashtags match so that we can assure ourselves that we are not simply making up things that are not there. I cannot stress how important that is, because far too often we are literally making up things that are not there. That is the reason why we use the symbols, and that our hashtag reflects what's in the symbols so that we can make sure that we're not making up information that's not there, because sometimes we know background information about a subject, and if we're not careful, then we put that background information into the article that we're reading, and that information never comes up. And so it creates misunderstandings that we definitely want to make sure that we don't have as we're trying to answer questions, okay? That being said, we're going to move on to the next section. It's called Born Beneath the Waves. Paragraph 2. In Greek mythology, Aphrodite, which means born from sea foam, was the daughter of Zeus and a sea nymph named Dione. Dione gave birth to Aphrodite beneath the waves, but Zeus, being the king of heaven, forced Aphrodite to rise from the depths of the ocean to the peak of Mount Olympus. There she was able to live with the other heavenly gods as the goddess of love and beauty. As the goddess of love and beauty, Aphrodite had a magic girdle or belt, which she gave to unhappy maidens to help them find love. The girdle gave the maidens grace and beauty, causing men to fall in love with them. So when I look through this, I'm looking for a frequency when I'm looking for my subject and what happened. And so frequency means that the name or the subject is repeated in some way throughout the entire paragraph multiple times. So when I'm looking through this paragraph, I'm trying to figure out, well, what is the subject? I see Aphrodite being mentioned 3 different times, right here, right here, and right here. Okay, so I can confidently say that Aphrodite is the subject, and therefore I'm going to put a smiley face on Aphrodite. Now we get a lot of information about her, and so we want to think like, what is the most important information that we find out about Aphrodite in this paragraph? And so I think that when we're looking at this, we find out that 1, she was a daughter of Zeus and Dione, right? Then 2, we find out that she was forced to rise to Mount Olympus and live with the other gods, and that she was the goddess of love and beauty. And then we find out that she had a magic girdle that she gave to unhappy maidens to help them find love. Okay, so I think that, like, because we see like this goddess of love idea repeated a couple of times, right? We see goddess of love, love, love. We see it repeated throughout. So then I can use that to help me decide what's the most important information because it's frequent. So because we see her being mentioned as the goddess of love and her helping people find love, we know that that's the most important idea about Aphrodite, and we can put an exclamation point next to it. Okay, so what did she do? She gave a magic girdle to unhappy maidens. Why did she do this? Well, because she was the goddess of love and beauty. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create our hashtag. Up here, the hashtag is going to say Aphrodite gave unhappy women a girdle to help them find love because she was the goddess of love. I'm going to go on ahead and separate my hashtags here because I do not want them getting mixed up, okay? So she gives them a girdle because she is the goddess of love. So because she's this being who like is over or in charge of love, she wants to help women who don't have it to find it. Moving right along to paragraph 3, it says Aphrodite was the mother of Eros, Cupid, the god of love, and Aeneas, the Trojan war hero, and the head of a colony in Italy that later became Rome. The poet Homer wrote that when Aeneas was wounded in battle, Aphrodite was severely hurt while saving his life. This is why Aphrodite is known for her strong love for her children in Greek mythology. Okay, so when we're looking at this, we see a couple of different people or subjects being repeated. We see Aphrodite in here 3 times, and then we see Aeneas in here 3 times, or in here twice, excuse me. So because Aphrodite is in here most, we can infer that she is the more important subject. And so we want to figure out, what is Aphrodite doing in this paragraph? Well, in this paragraph, it says that she was wounded, or excuse me, she was severely hurt while saving Aeneas's life. Why? Because she had a strong love, excuse me, that should be a question mark. She had a strong love for her children, okay? So, Aphrodite, known for her strong love for her children, because she was badly hurt while saving her son Aeneas. And I don't know how to do the Greek symbol here. I'm sure like if I took the time, I could, just make an A and put 3 lines on there. But for all intents and purposes, Aeneas is this same name here. Just want to make that clear, okay? So, moving on to the next section. The next section is actually titled Aphrodite's Love for Adonis. And so we're going to pick up back on this idea of her love for her children. And so we're going to say another son, because we know that when an author is writing, all of the ideas are connected. And so I'm going to infer that this is another son because she's talking about, or the author is talking about, Aphrodite's love for her children in this paragraph up here. And so the next paragraph, it would make sense for it to transition into another story about her showing her love for her children. Okay. So that being said, paragraph number 4 says, according to Greek mythology, Aphrodite, had a great and tender love for Adonis, who was supposedly very handsome. As the story is told, Adonis was a motherless baby, and Aphrodite protected him by placing him in a chest. She put him in the care of her sister, Persephone, who also fell in love with the beautiful child. When Persephone refused to return Adonis to Aphrodite, Zeus had to decide which foster mother would get to keep him. He decided that Adonis should spend 4 months of every year with Persephone and 4 with Aphrodite, and the last 4 on his own. However, Adonis chose to be with Aphrodite for the extra 4 months. Okay, so again, Aphrodite and Adonis are the 2 main names that are repeated over and over and over throughout this section. So I know that I want to include them in my hashtags. Well, what does Aphrodite do? She loves this orphaned child named Adonis. She gives him to her sister Persephone to take care of, and then she has to work out basically a custody agreement with her sister in order to have visitation with Adonis, because her sister wanted to keep him. So when I think about that, I want to figure out what is the most important idea. And so here it says Persephone refused to return him. Zeus decides who gets to keep him. He decided every 4 months with Persephone, Aphrodite, and on his own, Adonis chose to be with Aphrodite. So this is all about them trying to figure out who was going to have custody of Adonis. And so ultimately, the most important idea, because the whole second, literally here, all the way to here, all of this is about them trying to figure out who is going to have custody of Adonis. So I know that this is my most important thing that I want to focus on, because the whole second half of the paragraph is focusing on that. So it's frequent idea, this idea of they need to figure out who is going to have custody of him. And so I'm going to look, and I'm going to put my exclamation point here, because this is the actual custody agreement. Why did they have to do this? Well, because Persephone, refused to return Adonis to Aphrodite. So I'm going to put my question mark there. So I'm going to put Zeus decided that Adonis would split his time between Aphrodite and Persephone. Let me make sure that I'm spelling that right. Because Persephone did not want to give Adonis back to Aphrodite. Okay, so we have this idea that there's a struggle or a conflict over who is going to have actual custody of Adonis, because they both want custody, right? Both Aphrodite and her sister Persephone love Adonis, this little baby boy, and they want to keep him. And so they have to decide who gets to keep him when. Okay. And last but not least, we have paragraph number 5. It says, later, he was killed by a wild boar during a hunt, and in her deep sadness, Aphrodite called out to Hades, the youngest brother of Zeus and the god of the underworld. Feeling sorry for her, Hades let Adonis come back to life and live with Aphrodite for 6 months every year. The remaining half of the year, Adonis spent in the underworld. Now, you're going to go on ahead and put the symbols and the hashtag together for this last paragraph here. And then after that, you're going to use your understanding of the text to go on ahead and answer and annotate, the next two questions. Then after that, you will check your work and move on.